Hi,
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. And oh, hi. I see everybody's there. Huh, jolly good. Wow. Yeah. Terrific. Oh, yeah. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, yeah. Do I was okay. Do we didn't I don't remember growing up celebrating it. I mean, despite the fact, I mean, we've been to Ireland. We have relatives in Ireland. I can still remember in high school people being like, I was the one not wearing green even though had been to Ireland. It's just not I don't even
I,
associate it with Ireland.
well, I think you're largely right. I mean, we are probably um Findlay's as much Irish as Scottish,
Sure.
but Irish people it seems to me that first, well, recent first generation people from Ireland are not very interested in being professional Irish people.
Yes.
But,
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
but people whose grandparents or great grandparents came here,
Yes.
especially if they own bars on Staten Island, they it pays for them to be professional Irish
Yes.
people. And I think that there's probably my observation because the parade was yesterday.
Yes.
The reason the parade is on Saturday when it falls on a Sunday is because Irish people are supposed to be all Catholic and they're supposed to be all going to church
Ah,
on
yes.
Saturday. So when it falls on a Sunday, the parades are on Saturday. That
Yes.
is the official parades. However, the
Yes.
local parades
Sure.
are also on Sunday, so they get two parades, which means the pubs are open or the bars are open. It
Yeah.
also I think there are a lot of people in the suburbs of New York I've observed who are not definitely not Irish who take the opportunity to put on green hats and green sweaters
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
come in and hang and it's a big just a big day of young and old people drinking and yeah, I mean
Yeah.
I don't quite it's the Irish don't really need um, a kind of I don't believe that they need a kind of reason to for solidar symbols of solidarity.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, okay.
Maybe I'm being cruel to them, but I mean they've had presidents and I mean they're well
In this
integrated.
country, well, no, in this country, I think even still in the UK, I think there can be it can be discriminatory. I think if you're Irish, or there can be, I mean, attitudes at least and historical, or is that
Well,
just
I
over?
suspect if you're Scottish too.
Well,
I mean, they look down on the Scottish, the Welsh, and the Irish, but the
yes,
Irish more. The
yes,
Irish more only because the Irish who come to England tend to be poorer and
yes.
not as well educated, and they're scrambling at the bottom of the ladder for construction jobs and stuff like that.
Which was also true of the Irish in this country. I mean, it's and there's when you talk about sort of white as a race, which is not even a real thing. It's just sort of this thing we made. The Irish and the Italians were sort of the last to be invited into the tent, and it was so. I think there was a time in American history where Irish were so in New
Oh
York
yeah.
associated with tenements and slums, and so they were on.
Oh yes, they were at the bottom. They were at the bottom. I mean, yeah, they definitely were. And I guess that's why a lot of them went to Boston. I don't know. They
Sure.
went.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
They,
Yeah.
well, but also they traditionally entered, became policemen and firemen,
Yes.
and
Yes. Um,
that was the entree into the middle class for them.
Yes, and then from there, aldermans, and then politicians, and yeah, no, and yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
But being Irish, but the essence of being Irish also, I think, there is culturally a built-in nepotistic.
well, I'm sure, but I mean, why? Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Why not, right? Yeah.
yeah. No, but okay, I went to the parade yesterday here, which I don't think I've gone to this particular parade, or certainly not in years. It's yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, a lot of it are like actual like Irish dance associations, and they're doing their river dance, but it's also step teams and people who yeah, it's I mean it becomes a unicyclist, it becomes a pan. It's just an excuse to have a party, I guess, which is fine.
But there is, yeah, what you said was very interesting, but it seems to me that I didn't notice anything, and I was in the city, and I'm in the city this weekend, but I didn't notice anything either in the media that really had anything to do with Irish culture. I mean,
Mhm.
like the step dancing or literature or James Joyce. So I don't know, whatever. I mean, there
Right.
is Oscar Wilde. Yeah, but it's just like it seems like wearing green and drinking, and
I know. No, yes, I
which is
think
very superficial. But
yes.
that's you know,
Yeah.
um, I guess the Puerto Rican Day Parade isn't that different. I mean, it's just people coming together and celebrating, and
Yes.
or the Israel Day. It's
Yeah. 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 No,
but
and it is. It's just people coming together and celebrating. I think, yeah, no, I agree. I don't think it has anything to do with actual Irish culture. I do see in the food blogs there'll be, maybe something about Irish stew or so, some recipes. But I think you're right. I think day drinking, that's about it. What else? What else is going on with you? Where are you? Are you at the,
I'm at my Airbnb.
yeah, okay.
I'm
Oh,
still
yeah,
here.
yeah, okay.
I'm, yeah,
Um,
I'm.
and yeah, no, so tell me what's going on with you. How was your week? How is
We went very quickly.
hmm
Uh, I'm doing a panel discussion tomorrow evening at the Castelli Gallery. They're showing a very big painting that Jim Rosenquist did in the late 90s about Checkpoint Charlie and
hmm
Holy Roman Empire. It's kind of a crazy historical painting that had to do with, I guess, him being influenced by the fall of the Berlin Wall.
huh.
And so I'm going to have a talk with Judith Goldman, who's a former curator and a friend of mine who's knew Jim very well,
Yeah.
and a young, he's 41, a British Caribbean artist, Alvaro Barrington, who's I mean, he's been known for for quite a long time, but his work is now becoming very popular. Bears maybe some relationship to Jim's, but we'll find out. He's just agreed to be a speaker, so I
Mhm.
don't know quite. I'm not going to press the point, but
I
so
mean,
I wanted to have an artist and I wanted to have
yes,
uh, a curator. So
yes.
it's up to
That's
him.
that's always a tough position to be in when someone's been called to talk about someone else and possibly their own, but how much or how little may or may not depend on. I mean,
Well, yeah, he wouldn't have said yes if he
yes,
didn't have some kind of desire to discuss
sure,
that,
sure, sure,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So and he's I've read his biography. I mean, he said he was influenced by people, of course, like Vermeer and Rauschenberg and others. So
Mhm.
and his work does actually, there are some parallels with his work is not just paintings, but he uses objects and fabrics and different
Hmm.
kinds of materials, and that's something that uh, Jim often did, even
Mhm.
with some of the very big paintings. He'd
Mhm.
add he'd add something to it, which was a physical object,
Mhm.
which the net result was, for any dealer, it made it much more difficult to sell.
Sure.
I mean, as opposed to Rauschenberg, who was like, that was all part of his process,
Right.
so people expected it. But Jim would do it when it was kind of unexpected,
Yeah.
and people say, "Oh, it's got that piece of plexiglass sticking out of it." Well,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
no, but I mean, he had a very good reason for doing it. But
Mhm.
anyway, so I'm going to do that panel. Then I've got to get ready to go to Hong Kong.
Yes.
And you know, we'll see what happens there. But I'm interested in going. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to going. And
And when was the last time? I know when, the last time the galleries. When was the last time you've been to Hong Kong? Were you
it was the gallery in 2019.
okay?
There
Yeah,
was
yeah,
a
yeah.
lot with art fair. I think it limped along during COVID, or it may have been it may have shut down during COVID, but I know they had it last year and
Yes,
maybe the first year. A lot of other people are doing it, and so
yes,
um, we don't know. It will be interesting to see whether there is censorship in this. I mean, I have a couple of friends who live there as artists, and I'll be seeing them.
hmm
Um, and it will be interesting to see how they, what the situation is,
what the
because a lot of
climate
people,
feels like. Yes, yeah,
yeah, and people seem to be leaving Hong Kong. They're worried. They're worried about, being completely dominated by mainland China, but
yes,
which now owns Hong Kong. So I mean, it's
right. I
not
mean,
like
yeah,
Taiwan, where they're saying maybe we're afraid they might attack us, but in fact they don't need to attack Hong Kong because
right.
they
No,
got it.
right. It's yes,
So so we'll see. But no, I was just reading actually about that's kind of weird. There was a huge pre-wedding party in India with Rihanna and
yes,
Mark Zuckerberg.
yes,
Do you know about
yeah,
this?
yes,
And it seems, I mean, slightly appalling given the fact that this is the richest guy in India, and he's a big supporter of Modi, who is, you know, totally anti-Muslim. I mean, it's
yeah,
kind of an autocrat. I mean, he is actually an autocrat, I think. I
yes.
mean, he's
Oh
a
yeah,
right.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
Yep.
um,
Um, I have. What did you hear about it? Did you hear anything critical about Rihanna's performance?
no, no, no. What some news seem to be focused on the fact that Mark Zuckerberg was jealous of the $1 million watch that the groom had just purchased.
These are the stories. Yeah, these are the types of stories. Okay. Yes, I know about this event. The groom is the son of India's
Yeah,
richest
yeah,
person.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Rihanna performed for 90 minutes at
Oh,
specified for $6 million. Some people thought that her performance was lackluster, to which I have to say, would you spend $6 million to pay Rihanna for 90 minutes? And if you wouldn't, then are you the audience to judge whether or not? I mean, what value would you? I mean, my expectations would be so high that I don't think I'm the right person to judge. But I think she fulfilled her requirements by being on stage for 90 minutes at the wedding, which is what they paid her for. So whether or not she seemed happy to be there or did her full dance or just kind of shimmied like half-heartedly, she got paid. So that's my feeling on that. The whole thing, yeah, no. Mark Zuckerberg watches. I think Jeff Bezos was also there. Ivanka Trump was also there. I mean, it just showed they're all just. I mean, they're all still just on Epstein's island. They're all just hanging out together. It's not really. I mean, it's. I don't know. Whatever.
I, but it does suggest actually, um, this is impossible to do, but I mean, many performers have been paid large sums of
Yes.
money for private parties. In fact, I was the victim. Why? How can I say this? We're being recorded. Um, I attended the 50th birthday party of somebody I know, not American, and it took place in Monte Carlo. And um, Celine Dion
Yep.
was performed,
Yep.
and I mean, I had not been a fan of Celine Dion's, but I had been pretty much, I don't know, I wasn't opposed. In other words, she as a singer, she just wasn't somebody that interested me. Does that?
Right. Yeah. No.
I don't
Yeah. Yeah.
want
Yes. Yeah.
to
Yeah. Yeah.
not anti Celine. So so I was actually by chance put there were long tables which were at 90-degree angles to the stage,
Uh-huh.
and I was at the front of the table that was immediately adjacent to the stage.
Yes.
So I was about 12 inches from Celine Dion most of the time, uh, on, with a problem about looking up because she
Yeah.
was wearing a very short skirt. So no, but I have to say she did a fantastic job. I mean, she earned whatever, I don't know what she was paid,
Yes.
but she definitely
Oh,
earned
she
it.
she put her she actually you felt that she
No, she did.
I
She
know she's
did.
not your
She
style of music, but she still put her passion
No,
and
no, 100% she
yeah.
did.
Yeah, yeah.
She had her mother there too, and it was all
Oh, yes.
it was, it was a Celine Dion event,
Yes.
because she's not, well, I don't think she was not ill at the time, but she has a kind of, there are painful things about her and her life, and that kind of become part of her story, that,
Yeah.
part of the performance. No, it was all fine. But then I thought, no, that nobody, obviously none of these have been recorded, or they haven't been professionally recorded. So
No.
you couldn't actually have an awards ceremony for wedding
Best
events
private. Yeah.
that were by
Yeah.
world famous performers,
Right.
right? How lackluster in other words, did they really sing for their supper, or did they just walk through it and grab a check on the way
Would it,
home?
yes, would it be awards or would it be more like the Razzies where you're really looking for like the worst
Yeah.
no, okay, I think a lot about yeah, I didn't even know any of this existed until a few years ago. It's all the top celebrities. I mean, especially solo artists like Rihanna or Adele or whatever. They get, yeah, people, billionaires will fly you out to their home just to perform basically for them and a small group of fans, for a large group of fans, for a wedding. I know in India, just lavish multi-day weddings that are very, very expensive and go on for days is just common, and that's the culture. But no, Maroon 5, after they were kind of called out on it or made fun of for doing it for some rich person's wedding, they kind of just made a joke of it, and they did a video where they just crashed a whole bunch of couples' weddings and played song, and like they kind of just made, now they're like
Oh, that's very good.
like
Yeah, I
now
like
they're
that.
kind of a joke as that they're a wedding band or that they're, but it's, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you can't afford, most
But I,
people.
I suspect that, I mean, you don't have to be a billionaire to get Frankie Valli for your daughter's wedding, I don't think.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I think it depends
I
on,
mean,
yeah,
Frankie Valli probably, like, he could maybe be 15 grand to do 25-minute set. I mean,
yeah.
that's affordable for any wealthy carpet manufacturer, on Long Island. And I think there's a lot of that, actually.
Right. Yes, no, yeah, yes, yes. I also no, okay, it also it can turn dark. So Tony Shi, who is a tech mogul who died unfortunately of drugs and I think asphyxiation, but drugs. He had previously hired Jewel, the musician Jewel, who is now allegedly dating Kevin Costner, to perform a private event. They ended up becoming sort of not friends, but like pen pals. And she had actually warned him that she was worried about him like weeks before he died. So she
Oh,
basically, he had hired her, to perform, but then
yeah.
she can't, when she performed, he was partying and had all these people around him
Yeah,
that like,
okay.
I don't trust these people who are around you. She took an interest and cared, but unfortunately, it didn't.
That's very
But
interesting,
yeah, no, I
actually.
mean, I think that's a rare. I love Jewel just as a musician. I think she's a really down to earth. Yeah, I like Jewel as a musician. So that doesn't surprise me that she would be a genuine human being to care about someone. Um, oh, and then my favorite one, my favorite one is the punk band NoFX has an album and it's a live album and it's called Ruin. Bless you. Um,
Okay, thank you.
it's called Ruin Johnny's Bar Mitzvah, and it literally is their performance at one of their record executives' child's bar mitzvah. And I mean, they're very scatological. They sing about pee and poop, and you can hear the kids laughing. So I don't think he ruined the bar mitzvah,
No, I don't think he did it. I don't think they did at all. I
but
think
yeah.
maybe
So
he
yeah, no.
horrified the rabbi, maybe, but
Oh well, yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, I think if it's for a record company executive, I remember because Ahmed Ertegun used to have Stephen Stills and people like that.
Huh.
But they
Sure.
were, in a sense, his employees.
Yeah, no, right.
They had a reason to be fond of each other. Let's put it that way. Yeah. So what's going on? What's happened with you this week? Anything?
No, it kind of
Anything
just went by.
politically?
I agree. It went by quickly. Um, an employee who's been out on leave for a long time came back, and we hired a person, so I now have a full team again for the first time in a long time. That's just
Great.
really exciting. Um, and yeah, no, but it's still going to be it's going to be a busier crunch time as I onboard a new person, but then once they get their caseload, I can stop being the point person for all those sites. So
Yeah.
it's my next month or two is going to be very busy, but I'm looking. I can see the crest of the. It's been a long slog. It's been with this winter has been a long slog. But no, work was fine. I don't know what's going on in the news. Any thoughts on TikTok? Any thoughts on the whole?
Well, yes, I do. I think it's very evident that if you want to change Trump's policy on anything, you just have to offer him a lot of money.
Well, yeah.
No, I mean, that's what I mean. Basically, he was signing legislation against it.
Mm-hmm.
He was against it. He was against it, against it. And then he runs into the owner and suddenly he's for it. I mean, and he's got real financial problems.
Yeah.
And this could, $100 million or whatever from this guy. Is his name Yas? Is the owner of TikTok, who he ran into at an event,
right?
And had a conversation with that he claims didn't change his mind, but the timing was that as soon as he had that conversation, he decided.
That part, that's a wrinkle. Yeah, that wrinkle for me, I'm still trying to figure out. And it seems remarkably for now, but they tend not to in the long run. The other Republicans are defying him and continuing on with their, at least. I mean, that's
Well, they can't all on a dime.
They can and they have and they have though. They have before. They all only when pressed days and days and days after January 6th said, "Oh my gosh, it's awful, it's terrible." And then they all came around to saying that these are political prisoners. They'll turn not necessarily on a dime, but they'll all
We'll see, because maybe this means does this mean he's weaker than we think?
I think what's interesting is, I think unfortunately we are now officially in the primary. We know who the candidates are. This is it, and it's going to be a long 8 months of polls where they're literally going to be within points of each other. It's going to be very nerve-wracking for everyone on whatever your political leaning or perspective. It's going to be obviously only a negative campaign. There's no other. I mean, the term like mudslinging or anything, that doesn't apply anymore. Those are the only type of campaigns we have.
That's the way, yeah.
And yeah, I think how Trump affects the down tickets, because they didn't do well in the midterms. None of the candidates he endorsed. I mean, he'll tell his crowds that the candidates he endorsed did great, but that's not actually true.
No, it's not true. And in Michigan, he is supporting a very weak candidate, apparently, who is running in the Republican primary for the Senate race, and the Democrats absolutely want that candidate to win, because they believe he's the weakest one for them to be up against. In other words, that they have the incumbent. I think his name is Brown.
Yeah.
He's the incumbent senator. He's been there, but it's a reddish state, and
yes.
He's blue. But this guy who is I mean, he's got a kind of sexy profile that Trump would like, but
Yeah.
but both of his opponents are much more solid and
Yeah.
experienced politically. But Trump actually went down there to endorse to support him, and I think the primary is on Tuesday. But
Right.
again, if that guy loses,
Yes.
or if he gets the nomination and loses,
Yes.
then it's again one more down for Trump.
Yes. The other thing I think is going to be interesting in those swing states is those candidates have been very cautious not to. I mean, they're not endorsing Trump because they're in states where where they have to be moderate, and he's an extreme candidate, and so.
Yeah.
But those are also the states he needs. So he's how all of them are going to negotiate that, how his endorsements are going to go, how or not they endorse him. I mean, Mike, I'm sorry, I hate to laugh. Mike Pence said, yeah, no, he sort of, well, as firmly as Mike Pence can say anything, that he's not endorsing Trump, but because of abortion, TikTok, and then the third reason is also kind of January 6th, that time he tried to have me killed. Like it's, I mean, even
Oh yeah, and when they put up the gallows for me when
no, but literally they were like, but also they had to act like they had to prompt that out of him because his first was like, oh no, his stance on abortion is not, I mean, but that's what's important to Mike Pence. I mean, yeah, and yeah. Um,
that's very funny. I mean, it's not, but it is.
it's what I mean. It's yeah. It is what it is. Yeah, but then I mean the whole. Well, no. And again, what is his name? Rand.
Rand Paul.
Yeah, Rand Paul. I don't like him at all. I don't believe. But to hear him, he made a lot of sense this week, of all places on Fox News, saying, well, first of all, targeting one company is illegal. That's not how Congress is supposed to work. Which is, I mean, that's to me the main thing about targeting TikTok is if their goal is to stop the spread of misinformation, well, they're saying specifically communist or anti-American misinformation, but any type of misinformation, banning TikTok but allowing all the other social medias to continue on with no regulation will be an absolute win for anyone who is spreading misinformation on the internet, because it will sort of say, well, problem solved, and then I mean it will divert attention away from they need regulation for all the companies. So to have one company, to single out one company, and I mean it's clearly based on what? There's not based on the conjecture that the Chinese government could XYZ, but there's no evidence that they have or do, or I mean it's I don't know.
Yeah, I think also an extension of that is if you're going to if you're going to force the sale of a company because it's owned by an overseas investment, because you decide you don't like, or you're suspicious of that government, right? Well,
Yeah.
you could I mean, a logical extension would be no Louis Vuitton, we don't like the French, no this. No. In other words, it's not a sound rationale. It's not a.
No, and it could be.
I mean, where we can daily consume lots and lots of products which have overseas owners, right? And vice versa, because what do they want to start banning everything that comes from the United States
Right.
that might be scientific or technical, or maybe they don't like the chips that we make here because they could be secretly downloading information from them. I mean, it's
yeah, no. First of all, there's that. I mean, it can very easily just derail global trade if everyone starts.
yeah.
No, I think it's a both and. I think it makes sense. We have been very reliant on other nations, both for the raw materials for our technology and for the final product, how they get made. I think it makes sense for Americans, for America to invest in American firms doing more of that. And I don't think it makes, yes, no, and I think specifically with regard to media, when I mean it gets very, very, the idea of ownership and large corporations, and they know this. That's why it's kind of feels very just cynical. And like, I mean, they know this, that it's that, yeah, it could come down to even, you know, right wing, even Fox News, if they're owned by 3% such and such, and they say something that so and so doesn't like, it could suddenly be, I mean, it could be a very, and then even just the chilling effect of that, I think, is always.
Well, after all, Rupert Murdoch's Australian. Rupert Murdoch has dominated right-wing media
American politics for 40 year, 50 year. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah.
years, right? And he's either Australian or I don't know what his city. Maybe he has a US passport. I don't care.
Right.
The fact is,
Yeah.
foreign, that's a foreign ownership, right?
Yeah.
That,
Yep.
yeah. So take that.
What else?
So I have to admit, and I think we've discussed this before. I'm not. I don't know what AI is capable of.
Yes.
And therefore I'm skeptical about the fear of it, but maybe that's because I'm ignorant. Because I still think that it's got to be dependent on energy that it cannot supply itself, or can it?
Oh, well, I mean, okay, the energy thing is it could keep itself turned on if it decided to turn itself on, because how things are powered are so many different ways. So that is a little like Skynet sort of dystopian but real. Okay, let me tell. Okay, I know. No, I love to talk about AI. Let's talk about it every week. And like, these are the headlines that jumped out at me. One, so Mid-Journey, the specifically the graphic visual where you just you type a description of something and it will create an image of it, has banned all images of Biden and Trump through the election. They're just they will not, the generator will not let you create any images of Biden and Trump.
Because
I think that even if, to me, that technology is still, I always joke about it, it's still, you know, their ghost extra fingers. Oh, I'm sure you saw the whole thing with the princess and her Photoshop fail.
oh yes, of course.
I mean,
yeah.
that's another one where, yeah, I mean, that's neither here nor there. But I think, yeah, to me, it's not. Well, no, I don't think you have to be very sophisticated to. I think it has reached the point where it could fool people, even people who are looking for it. It can fool people.
That I agree. No,
Yeah.
I agree
Okay.
with that.
Now, as far as the creativity factor, here's a story that was out of. This was out of Hollywood, talking about how AI is used and how it can be used and how it could enhance writing in a legitimate way. So they don't feel, and this was a professional writer who has used AI and is exploring how it can be used. This is their opinion. They don't think it's ever going to replace people for ideas, the stories, the grand ideas that are plots and that make up stories. AI is not going to do that. It can regenerate and regurgitate, but it's not going to come up with that. What it can do really well currently even is fill in a lot of details. So you could take a script that you've written by a human being and it could give the background characters more depth just with changing a few of their lines. It could. So there are ways it could actually enhance what we're doing now. That's sort of the positive way. Now, then you think about.
Basically, you're saying it can act as a good editor.
It can act as a good editor. I don't want to simplify it that much, but it can also be a refiner. It can identify plot points. I don't know. Yeah, no, maybe you're right. It can act as a good editor. Maybe that is what I'm saying. But okay, here's the other one. And then there's another technology. I can't remember the name of it. But it's basically now, instead of text to make a still picture, it's text to make a whole video or a moving image. Tyler Perry, who is he's a billionaire filmmaker based a lot out of Atlanta. He's really brought, over the course of the last 2 decades, a lot of filmmaking to Atlanta. Every time you see that Made in Georgia peach, that's a lot of his doing, and he's built massive studios in Georgia. He saw a demo of this technology that lets you just sort of type in a description of something and then create a video, and he actually canceled an expansion on his studios. It was going to be 12 physical studios where they were going to film things, and he's like, and so that's, I mean, to me, that's sort of interesting because I think he knows what he's talking about. And so if he has that much faith in that technology, that's interesting. But that was also jobs. First of all, the constructing of those studios, the who's going to fill those studios with personnel, that was all jobs. And I don't know. And then as an anti-capitalist, I'm always like, yeah, universal basic income. They can take all the jobs. We can still get paid. It's still just the billionaires who are hoarding all the money. It's not AI is going to take our jobs. That's not my concern. So
no, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah, it's a technology. I mean the car in what's his name? Ford put a lot of people who looked after horses out of business.
Sure.
I mean, so there is some adaptation. I would like to go deeper into the question of, can AI be sentient? In other words, can AI have an attitude? Can
Right.
AI
there's a term for
have
it.
a concept of good and evil?
Yes, no. There's a term for this, and it's called achieving. And I can't remember it right now because again, this isn't my area, even though it's something I'm fascinated with. But I think they're less concerned over whether it is truly sentient to whether it reaches a point where its behaviors are so
Appears to be.
yes, no, and there is a threshold, and it's not there yet. It's not even really close. But if you've heard about a lawsuit between Elon Musk and OpenAI,
Yeah.
part of that is he's trying to push the issue of whether it's reached it now, and it hasn't, and most experts don't believe it has. He's also kind of pushing it like he's a stockholder in this organization now, and he's not. He was an early investor who was divested. They signed an agreement that he's no longer part of it. So now trying to come at it is just because it kind of looks like it's just sour grapes because they're successful and they beat him to the. Now he has his own competing AI, and coincidentally is suing his own old former partners. So that's all weird. But at the heart of that case, this issue of if and when and what does it mean? Because one of the things it triggers when it reaches that is some of these companies which are private will then be required to share their data with others just for the purposes of security and safety and just common good. They've agreed in advance, if and when we achieve this, we will make these things available. But until they do, of course, each of these companies is privately holding it because they want to be the one to do it first, and they want to make the money to be as the company who does it first. So that's all. I mean, again, the economics of it is all interesting. And yes, Henry Ford put a lot of horse people out of business, but look at all the auto factories to this day. Yes, there are a lot. The tech companies. I just realized a building downtown in Seattle that I thought was apartments or housing is the Hulu. Like, I mean, so someone's going to be employed. Someone's.
Yeah, no, I wasn't so concerned about the employment. I don't know. I mean, it can be, obviously it can take everything it's given.
Yes.
And it can sort it, right?
Yes.
And that can apply to literature, it can apply to art, it can apply to music, right? But it's not going to create a new art form or a new music form.
No. Well, I mean, Well, for me, music is so. What's a well that I am.
It can be used. It can be used by human beings to create new creative endeavors.
I'm thinking.
Can it do that spontaneously?
Yeah, I'm thinking. I mean, I'm leaning towards yes. I mean, I don't, I mean, I'm leaning, maybe not yet, but I think it will get there. Or, yeah, I don't know. I mean, but again, I think also another part of that whole debate is, what is art, what is commercial art, what is illustration, what is, I mean, I think yeah, it can do. Well, no, it's funny that the main art program IAR is called Midjourney. It can do journeyman's work. It can do assigned tasks, but no, will it ever create from the heart?
Yeah,
No, I
because
don't think
I mean, quite honestly, a lot of artists for a long time have had studio assistants
yeah,
who did journeyman work,
yeah,
whether it was filling in the color or, I mean, not just preparing the paint, but actually putting some of it on
putting it
canvas.
on the case. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and making the molds, and so
Right.
I'm not at all against that. But
Yes.
if you were to have an AI program that somehow absorbed the 20 and 20 early 21st century movements in art, although I don't think there have been any for about 20 or 30 years, and say, okay, no, but I'm
I know.
serious.
Yeah.
We've got a point of repetition, and I've discussed that
Yeah.
before. But
I don't
could
disagree.
AI create a new movement? I
Yes.
mean,
Yes.
something which was obviously it's all based on the past, on something that's happened, but a
Right.
direction that nobody thought of, let's say, or
Yeah.
nobody else has 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 tried.
Yeah.
Uh, can it? I don't.
Okay, I want to do one more story, but I want to ask you what made you think of it this week, or what's been on your mind?
No, it wasn't anything in particular. I think probably because I failed to understand I've been reading about the headlines of what you illuminated in terms of Elon Musk and Sam Altman. I think is
Oh,
that
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I didn't get what the whole. I know they were bitching at each other, but I didn't know.
yeah.
I knew it had to do with AI, but no, I've been thinking a lot about AI because it's in terms of what art journalists need to talk about. It's taken over from NFTs, but nobody talks about it in depth.
Yeah.
It's two paragraphs about some artist in somewhere whose new exhibition is based on AI or something
Someone's
like.
still making million. I still don't get it, don't care, don't want to. Still kind of feel like I should get into it because it is literally just like printing money until the Ponzi scheme falls apart. But NFTs is still happening, and
Oh
people,
no, it's fine. It
artists,
is, but it's actually
it's
it's
not
happening, but it's in a way, as I think it should. It's created its own space.
good. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
hasn't invaded the art world
Good.
and eaten it up.
Yes. Yeah,
It
yeah, yeah.
it
No. Okay, that's
got
good.
its own people, its own
Yep.
enthusiasts. There are still some artists who are interested in it,
Sure. But
but as a phenomenon that the art world was fascinated
right.
by, or
Right.
thought everybody was going to come. Well, some people thought they would become incredibly rich. That didn't happen, but cryptocurrency hasn't collapsed, and people still
No.
buy
Yep.
and sell NFTs, so that's
Yep.
fine.
Yep.
It's a broad. I mean, there are a lot of people in the world. I
Yeah,
mean,
no, right, exactly. No, exactly. That's yes. Okay, last story. Did you hear about this was at Circle in the Square Theater, the climate activists who interrupt.
yes, I did.
Okay,
I did.
what are your thoughts or feeling? What did, yeah.
I I always, well, several. First of all, I always feel badly for the actors in a situation like that because um, I think it's disrespectful, and I don't know what the play was. I don't know if it was germane.
I no, I okay. It was so the play. It was it is a revival of an 1882 play. The play is about water contamination and a plot to cover up basically an environmental
Okay.
So that no, and these actors in particular, I wouldn't be too worried about them because it was Jeremy Strong and Michael Imperioli who were encouraged by the theater to the actors were encouraged to leave the stage. Not only did they not leave the stage, they stayed in character. So as
Oh,
so
okay. All right.
so one of them is playing the mayor of the town who is corrupt and trying to cover up this environmental scandal. The other one is actually his brother who is trying to expose this scandal. So as the environmental activists are shouting in real life about how your government isn't going to protect you, the brother character is saying, "She's right, listen to her." And the mayor character is saying, "Don't listen to her, get her out of here." And so, but they stayed in character. The activists were removed.
Were they genuinely surprised? You think so? It wasn't a hype for
No,
the.
no, no, no. They were no, they were genuinely surprised, and he actually no, and they went on social media to say, we're fine with your cause, but theater, exactly kind of what you said that I mean, yeah, it's theater work is hard enough, and but I mean the whole time and place thing at the same time. Their argument, the climate activists, is there's no theater on a dead planet. That's one of the things they chanted and
Okay.
shouted. So, um, you
One
know,
of the things that brought up for me actually, which I had forgotten about, which was which was the opposite, which was when I went to see the Living Theater in New York
mhm.
in the 60s, which was a very, very radical group,
Yes,
couple, Julian Beck, and and at one point in the performance, the cast comes into the audience and they were shouting 2 inches. They won't give me a
oh,
passport. They
yeah,
were
yeah,
they were literally in
yeah,
your face.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It and it was kind of like, well, the point is, if you went to the Living Theater, you should have known to expect something like that.
Yes,
Even so, it was dramatic and alarming. Although,
right. Well, I mean, my very very commercialized version of that was I've seen the Blue Man Group where if you raise your
oh
hand,
yes,
they
yes.
might call on you, and it might be awkward or it might not. But that's yeah, no, I mean they do some confrontational theater.
Well,
Uh,
you can go if you go to Times Square and the breakdancers are grabbing people grabbing people
uh,
out off the street or out of the audience,
is
by race and lining them up and jumping over them and making fun of them. No, no, but I mean in a
no,
very, very
yeah, no, I mean yeah,
great way, in a
yeah,
great
yeah,
way.
yeah. Is Angry Elmo still there? Does he still there? There was the
No, we took a friend around, and no, no. But what's interesting is when you see them, you see this elderly couple. Well, they're an elderly couple because they're holding their heads,
Mhm.
and they're in costume, and they're walking slowly towards the subway after an evening's work.
Yes,
In
yeah,
there,
yeah. I
you
mean,
know.
you see the same thing too in Las Vegas, like off of the strip, like almost in an alley, like three or four of them just kind of
Yeah.
having their
Oh,
cigarette and
yeah.
uh,
Oh, they're divvying up the dollar bills.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yep,
so Bob, I
you're
will be in the air next weekend.
okay. And
The
then
following one, I come back on the Saturday, so maybe we could do this on the Sunday
we can do
again.
the Sunday. That would be great.
Few
Yep.
weeks time. Okay.
Okay. Have a great trip. Have a great week.
Thanks.
I love
Thanks.
you.
Lots of
Bye
love.
bye.